It's no secret that a lot of shops are being suspended on Etsy right now. In fact, during the 2024 Q1 investors call, Josh Silverman shared that Etsy's automated deactivation system over the last 3 quarters is taking down more shops than ever.
As we've taken down, as we said in the call, millions of listings and tens of thousands of sellers.
His exact words were tens of thousands of sellers. And if you're watching this video, it means that there's a good chance that you're either dealing with a suspension or you're terrified of it happening to you. With all of this widespread panic in the Etsy community, I wanted to learn more about what was really happening with these suspended sellers and what percentage of these suspended sellers were being deactivated for legitimate reasons. So in April of 2024, my husband and I reviewed the accounts of around 300 suspended shops in order to get down to the bottom of what was really going on. And of those, we found that around 75% of these sellers had broken a legitimate rule. They just didn't know it because Etsy didn't tell them. So in today's video, I'll be sharing some of the reasons why we suspect many of these sellers were suspended, both through our own efforts as well as what our friends over at Printify have noticed within their community. If you're new here, my name is Starla Moore, founder of the Handmade Alpha Academy for Etsy sellers and manager at erank.com, Etsy's most popular SEO tool. And let me start with a huge disclaimer. I do not work for Etsy. I do not have any ties with Etsy. And no matter how much you beg and plead, I cannot unsuspend your Etsy account. It's the #1 email I get in my inbox, and as much as I wish that I could help, there's nothing anyone can do to unsuspend an Etsy account outside of Etsy's barely existent support. Which is insanely important to note, because there are tons of scammers out there who are charging for Etsy account restoration. It's just not possible, and anyone who is attempting to charge you money for this type of service is trying to steal your money. I can't unsuspend your account, but what I have done is communicate directly with Etsy's head of customer support in a detailed and respectful request for Etsy to begin attaching justifications to suspensions. If you'd like to learn more about those initiatives, be sure to watch this video up here. But for now, we're stuck with Etsy's appeal system, which seems to reset every 10 days or so. So if you are confident that you haven't broken any of Etsy's rules, which we'll be covering in just a moment, my biggest piece of advice is to continue submitting appeals whenever you have the ability to do so. With disclaimers out of the way, let's get into the reasons that we suspect that sellers are being deactivated. This list was a collaborative effort between Printify as well as the research that my husband and I performed on the 300 suspended shops submitted to us in April. And while many of these reasons are purely speculative, meaning that they don't exist within Etsy's written policies, we still feel that sharing these speculations with you is important so that you can stay safe and protect your business, especially since AI is being used to terminate these accounts. This is robot rule enforcement, and robots can only follow black and white rules. They don't give room for context. To a robot, you either are breaking the rules or you aren't. Hopefully with this list, you can stay safe, follow the rules, and make way for sellers who were legitimately deactivated for no reason to get the support that they so desperately need from Etsy. All right, let's get into it. Providing necessary account information. When you join Etsy, you're not just making a profile, you're starting a business. So essential details like your tax information, your bank account details for Etsy payments, and possibly even your ID must be provided. Failure to do so or adding invalid account details will lead to a suspension before you've even had a chance to open your shop. Falsifying your location. This is probably the most common reason that I've personally noticed when it comes to suspended shops. It doesn't matter if you ship with a POD provider who ships from a different country. When filling out anything related to your location, you absolutely must put your actual country. There are 0 exceptions to this rule because this is legal information required for tax purposes. Using a VPN. If your IP address shows as being in the US and then Canada and then the UK, then Australia, all within the same week, it's going to look like you've been hacked. So if you use a VPN for web browsing, just make sure that you've deactivated it before working on your shop. Though Etsy's policies do not state that you can't use a VPN, we strongly suspect that VPNs may be leading to suspensions, especially when used to falsify your location. Updates to your legal name. If your last name changes and no longer matches your Etsy account details, this can obviously lead to problems. So just be sure to go in and change your account details if you've gotten married or if you go through a legal change of name. Not paying your Etsy bill. I personally recommend turning on auto billing if you're afraid that you won't remember, because Etsy is very unforgiving when it comes to outstanding balances. And it would be really crappy to lose your business over something as silly as a $3 unpaid fee. Having a secondary shop shut down. If you have more than one shop and one of your shops gets suspended for a policy violation, it's very likely that all of your shops will be shut down because they're all connected to your IP address. So again, just make sure that you're following the rules. Shilling and review inflation. On Etsy, you cannot buy your own items or ask someone else to do so in order to leave good reviews or to inflate the number of purchases in your shop. If you have family members who legitimately want to shop from you, this is totally fine, but I would be cautious of selling to family members living under the same roof and who may share your IP address, just to be safe. Repeatedly receiving bad reviews, cases against your shop, and repeatedly not shipping on time. These are a given. On Etsy, providing good customer service to our shoppers is the most important thing that we do. If Etsy suspects that you're not providing a great experience for buyers, it's very likely that you will be suspended. Drop shipping. This means selling anything that you did not make or design and allowing another service to ship it for you. This does not include print-on-demand items because POD products are designed by you, nor does it include craft supplies, tools, or vintage products, which are all allowed on Etsy. Not listing your print provider. As a POD seller, you need to make sure that you've listed your print provider as your production assistant and that your listing attributes state that the product was made by another company or person. Using mock-ups that don't represent your items. Etsy's policies state that if an item is created with production assistance, the listing's photos should be of the finished product or an image supplied by the production partner that accurately depicts the item that the buyer will be receiving. A few years ago, Etsy told Printify and Printful that it was totally fine to use mockups purchased from sites like Placeit or even other Etsy sellers. But this is not what the policy says, and we have seen tons of POD sellers being suspended for seemingly no reason, which is why we speculate that mockups may be causing issues. Remember, if a robot is enforcing the rules, it's seeing these rules in black and white. So POD sellers should be extremely careful when using any mockups that do not come right from their print providers. I really wish I could give more clarification on this one, but Etsy refuses to answer any questions about it, unfortunately. So for now, we have to interpret the rules exactly as they're written. Using stock sites like Creative Fabrica. Etsy's policies state that you must have a hand in creating your products. This means that you cannot buy a completed design, stick it on a shirt, and sell it. You can, however, use a site like Canva to combine multiple elements together to create an original and new design. Selling products like ShineOn jewelry, where only the backing card is designed by the seller. At one point, this was allowed by Etsy, but because the jewelry itself is not made or designed by the seller, Etsy stopped allowing it. Remember, you have to have a hand in making the item itself, not the package that it comes in. Metaphysical items. Etsy states that supplies related to spell work, such as herbs, crystals, candles, and tinctures, may be sold on Etsy, as long as they're not listed with metaphysical claims, such as health benefits. If selling things like tarot or psychic readings, you must include a physical or digital copy of the readings, such as a recording, an email, PDF, or a tarot spread photo. Selling handmade items that are not produced by you. If you're working closely with shop helpers or a family member to make your items, this is fine, as long as they're listed in your shop members section. But you can't buy a bunch of handmade items to resell with the claim that your business was responsible for making them. Selling services. Etsy's policies state that selling services is not allowed unless you're providing a digital or physical item with that service, such as a PDF. Selling any prohibited items. These are all clearly stated in Etsy's policies, so feel free to pause the video if you want to review this full list. Your photos have been traced to a site like Alibaba or Temu. This one really sucks for sellers who have had their photos stolen. But unfortunately, in order to fight dropshipping, Etsy has been scanning photos on popular dropshipping sites and matching them with products listed on Etsy.
We assume right now, if that item exists on AliExpress, we assume it's mass produced and we take it down. You as the seller can appeal that. You can tell us how you made it yourself and it still ended up on AliExpress. And by the way, that's true sometimes. You can appeal that, but our default now is we take that down.
And if your photos match with the images of an Alibaba listing, this can result in your shop being suspended, even if the images were stolen from you. If this happens, the best thing that you can do is file a DMCA takedown request with the site where the images are listed. If you're suspended for this reason, make sure that you supply Etsy with sufficient proof that you're the original creator of the item, such as a photo of yourself making it. Hacked accounts. If your account is compromised, Etsy closes it to ensure that the scammer doesn't do damage to you or their platform. So always make sure that you're following good practices when it comes to online safety. This includes never clicking links sent via Etsy messages or emails, never sharing your bank details outside of your Etsy settings page, and identifying genuine messages from Etsy within your From Etsy tab in your shop. Selling in unsupported territories. Etsy's policies clearly state which countries are currently eligible to sell on the platform, and those attempting to work around those restrictions will almost always face swift suspension. We also speculate that if you're currently living within an area of Ukraine that has been occupied by Russia, unfortunately Etsy may suspend your account due to the limits that they've placed on Russian sellers. This issue is a bit trickier since close proximity to a war territory isn't a standard support issue, but for the Ukrainian sellers, it is something to be aware of based on our observations. Lastly, selling IP infringing items. Regardless of what anyone says, you legally cannot sell anything on Etsy or anywhere else for that matter that contains copyright or trademark material. This includes references or imagery from TV shows, movies, video games, brands, celebrities, politicians, song lyrics, books, essentially anything that you did not invent within your own brain. And yes, this includes things like fan art. If any element of the product can be recognized for a larger piece of IP, you can't sell it. And this isn't just an Etsy rule, it's the law. But Starla, if Etsy really cared about IP, why do they let so many infringing sellers get away with it? I answer this question at least 10 times per week, which is why this Wednesday I'll actually be meeting with an IP lawyer to further seek factual clarification that I can pass to my sellers. But until then, here are the blunt facts. As of right now, Etsy's policies state that IP infringing items cannot be sold. When it comes to reporting and removing these items, only the owner of the intellectual property in question can claim and request the removal of that intellectual property. Etsy provides a reporting portal for brands to do so, which is the legal extent of their obligation. In order for Etsy to apply a widespread initiative of removing infringing items, Etsy would need to open the floodgates of responsibility over all IP listed on the platform. This means that they don't have the ability to just remove Disney items or just remove Marvel items. Etsy would have to take on the responsibility of removing all IP violating items, making them liable for anything not removed under this legal responsibility. And since new intellectual property is created, copywritten, and trademarked every single day, there's absolutely no way that this could be effectively done. Etsy cannot pick and choose who to protect. And not to mention, there are many sellers like myself who have legally binding contracts with IP holders who have issued us licensing to sell these items. This will only apply to very specific cases such as authors, publishers, indie gamers, and local schools, as Etsy sellers can't fork up the millions of dollars it takes to license with a brand like Disney. Yes, I did say millions. But it just adds to the layers of complexity that most sellers aren't really aware of when they can't figure out why that Disney sweatshirt that they keep reporting is still active on Etsy. In the realm of legal responsibility, Etsy can either take down all IP, and impossible task when we consider that even the word parrot is currently an active trademark for coconuts, which means that an algorithm would have to learn what items are and are not applicable under that trademark, adding an additional layer of often completely incorrect deactivations to Etsy. Because yeah, that's what we need right now. Or Etsy can do what they're currently doing, which is what is legally required of them, to provide an accessible resource for IP owners to file reports. At an explosion. More on IP law coming in the next few weeks after I've had a chance to meet with a lawyer. But in the meantime, guys, a lot of the noise that we're seeing right now about shops being deactivated for no reason are stemmed from legitimate policy violations. And unfortunately, those who are breaking the rules tend to have the loudest voices. And this makes it harder than ever for the legitimate sellers to reach the support that they so desperately need and deserve when they're wrongfully suspended. And it stretches Etsy's customer support too thin. So, follow the rules, keep fighting if you've been wrongfully suspended, and subscribe to my channel if you find my data-focused content helpful. Until next time, boo.